Good.
Welcome back, Linda Love Talk. So excited for this episode. I'm Brittany Coates, and the book pick for today, we're talking about Miss Linda Lemos' book. This is the must-read and the book you should be reading right now edition.
Thank you,
And
Brittany. Thank you, Brittany. Oh my God. So, can the law regulate social media and should it? That's the book right here. And it's Social Media Regulation in the United States, Comparative Law and Constitutional Rights. So, Brittany, you have some questions for me?
yes, I do have questions for you. Absolutely. So my first question is, what inspired you to become a book author?
That's a great question. I have had a love for books since the age of 5. Call Me Miss Matilda from the movie Matilda. I've been reading books since like 5, and I was always taken to the library, and I've read books on every single subject. So for me, this has been a lifelong goal and dream of mine that has recently been accomplished. And actually by accident, what happened was that I had to do a thesis for GW, George Washington University, and the thesis was for the major of paralegal studies. So, in fact, I did have an attorney, two attorneys, supervise this project for me, which was great to have, mentors on this project for this thesis. And I want to really quickly say thank you to Professor Evan Frank, and also a very special thank you to Miss Kimberly A. Hauser. Both are attorneys, and both have different, very interesting jobs. And without their assistance and their guidance, this book would not be possible. So I'm extremely thankful to them, and for them taking the time to tell me, what things could go in, what should be researched better. So again, this was definitely hard labor, actually. It was not easy. It was a lot of research. And the interesting part of that was that when I went to research about laws with regards to social media, um, there weren't many books. So I came across a book that Kimberly Hauser um, created, and her book, which I will definitely link in the comments below. Her book was so essential for me to write this book. It was the only book I could find to list as research for this book. And
Right.
I found her via social media, which is interesting, right? And I was like, I really need her help. I need to find a mentor. I have no one because the attorneys I knew didn't do technology law and didn't do social media law. So I'm like, I need to find her because she's the expert and the only expert. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna shoot her a quick like message via social media and hopefully she'll respond. And I don't know what she'll say or whatever. And luckily, she responded within like a day or two. And she's like, I'd love to be your mentor for this project. And I was like, thank you. And ever since,
Nice.
yes. And in season 1, she was on the podcast as well. So I brought her on. So her interview for her book, which this book was based on, is on my podcast as well. So again, it's like a full circle and it's a virtuous circle.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. That's very interesting. Definitely. And what motivated you to explore the regulation of social media in this intersection with constitutional rights?
That is a great question. What motivated me was, the news that we hear every day. Think about it. Yesterday, I believe Congress met with the top 5 social media CEOs with regards to them regulating certain aspects of social media, which apparently the companies have not done, and they apparently don't want to be held accountable. So
Right.
this book actually has a suggestion for the United States Congress, has advice for the Congress as to how they could proceed in order to regulate um, social media. and I give the answer towards the end. So I hope if you're Congress, I hope you pick up this book and read it
Mhm.
because I really think it would be a possibility for them to regulate. As you well know, social media, like many of our other medias, social media is not being regulated currently. However,
Interesting.
yes, but many of our other medias are. Like we have the FCC, what we show, what can be broadcasted, like on cable networks, that is regulated. Music, believe it or not, is regulated. So a lot of other items, like movies, as an example, that's a form of media that is regulated. You have
Right.
standards, right? You have G for general audience, PG-13, and so forth. And I think they need to look at these other medias and incorporate how they can use that and those type of regulations in order to um, regulate social media.
Absolutely. That was a great response. Absolutely. And the third question
Mhm.
is, what are the key concerns and debates regarding the regulation of social media, particularly in addressing issues like cybercrime, identity theft, and terrorism?
Okay, so I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause because I'm going to pause. So I'll just pause that. I'll edit that.
Okay.
Um, so with regards to cybercrime, identity theft, and terrorism,
Mm-hmm.
the FBI is the primary agency that oversees these crimes and keeps citizens protected from identity theft. Regarding identity theft, the Federal Trade Commission is the agency that's in charge of these crimes and preventing these type of crimes. Now, there's been
Okay.
data breaches and widespread privacy violations that have been regulated but not adequately. And there's no adequate protection for consumers currently with regards to social media. So most recent scandals have increased public urgency to address this issue and this problem, such as Equifax and the data breach that exposed 147 million American data. These millions have
Wow.
suffered identity theft, economic harm, autonomy injury of having sensitive information made public without their consent.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I have recommendations for Congress and urge Congress to create a national laws about this.
Absolutely. That was perfectly stated.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, my fourth question is, how does the First Amendment relate to private companies and social media? And what implications does this have for freedom of expression?
You know, the First Amendment does not relate to private companies which own social media. These private social media companies must abide by all state and federal laws. But it gets complicated because one singular social media platform is used worldwide. However, many times it's breaking the law in more than one country. As an example, a swimsuit model is modeling a bikini, which is expected in the United States and part of
Right.
our American culture. However, if this picture of a celebrity or model or an individual who is, unknown, a private citizen, reaches a country that prohibits this type of exposure, then the perpetrator here, which can be a swimsuit company, the model and celebrity, or private citizen, or there have been private citizens who show off, have pictures of themselves in bikinis on their social media. Right, Brittany? I think we've all seen those type of pictures everywhere.
Absolutely.
And the issue with that, right? And many people in America don't realize that those pictures are not private. They're open to third parties,
Hmm.
and can land in other countries because social media, no matter how much you lock it at this moment, it's still able to be accessed. Um, a company can actually sue, can actually fine or request an appearance in a foreign court.
Wow.
Right. So like as an example, Linda Love Talks podcast, right? So I basically just put informative stuff on Linda Love Talks or put items that are about this podcast, right? But let's say that I wanted to appear differently or have some explicit or rated R images or nudity on this website on Linda Love Talks. Linda Love Talks,
Right.
the website, the page on Facebook goes worldwide. This podcast right now goes worldwide, right?
Right.
So sadly, should I be do something that would go against a foreign government's laws because every country is different, have different laws. You know, there are countries that a woman's not even allowed to show an ankle.
Right.
So if I'm being seen in, let's say, a mini skirt, and
Right.
this image reaches that country, then that country can actually send me to court.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And there has been several lawsuits with regards to employees talking horribly about their employers, and they've been fired. So the dangers of social medias are um, quite large and quite big. And that's one of the things that I do in this book. I expose what those dangers are for a private citizen of the United States. Now, the second issue with regarding the First Amendment is that most people use social media to troll, you know, to bully, to insult. Unbeknownst to
Right.
them, here's the interesting part, Brittany. Unbeknownst to them, they can be held liable for the following defamation in a court of law. And now,
Mhm.
what is defamation? What is
Is it a form
defamation?
of like slander or libel? Am I pronouncing it correct? Libel, slander, libel, defamation.
Yeah, so defamation is a statement made to a third party about another person that is false and likely to harm the person's reputation. Okay.
Right. Right.
So we have a recent case of our ex-president with E. Jean Carroll, right? She went to law because he keeps mentioning her name and so on and so forth. So there are laws that are in in our American laws that prohibit these type of things. So let's say there's a celebrity and I want to talk badly about her and call her a few names or whatnot. I can't, and unbeknownst to me, I can't do that, but most people don't know that. I
Right.
mean, all that celebrity has to do is just screenshot their comments and send it to their attorneys. And then their attorneys can find you. I mean, it's not that hard to find people on social media, even if you came up with a fake name. There are ways to do it. So,
Oh,
and then,
wow.
yes. And
That's
then
interesting.
lastly, laws in different states have different results concerning defamation judgment. So New Jersey's laws for the state of New Jersey is different than the state of California's.
Right.
So regardless, it has to be known that. So let's say you talked crap about someone, you talked or you defamed someone.
Mm-hmm.
You live in California and they're in New Jersey. It could fall not in your state, it could fall in the other state's jurisdiction for that lawsuit.
Mm.
So it's
Yeah, that
very
explains it.
so
Great.
it's
Yeah.
very interesting. So I feel that if you're a troll, you may want to maybe stop trolling, but two, you may want
Yeah.
to pick up
That's
my book
definitely.
so you can be more informed. Uh, what's Brittany's like, don't do it.
No, that's perfect advice because a lot of times people troll online and they don't understand the repercussions. Like how you
Yes.
explained it is perfect.
Now I catch myself because I get into statements or arguments or and I catch myself and when I'm sometimes you make a public statement on a
Right.
comment thing. It's just for the public. You don't even want anyone to respond to you.
Right.
And many times you get a response that's not positive, and then most people want to defend themselves.
Right.
Listen, before you get into the name calling or before you get into who's right or whatever, just block the person. You don't know them anyway.
Right.
Avoid law, avoid going to court, avoid lawsuits, read my book.
No,
What?
that's perfect advice. And just to state this real
Mhm.
quickly, it's like I'm not gonna say any names. It's
Yeah.
a YouTuber out who actually is facing a federal lawsuit and litigation against a popular rapper, you know.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yes, that does when you was describing the laws, rules, and regulations, how you perfectly answered that. I was just thinking about that particular situation.
Oh, definitely.
Now she
There's new cases every single there's new cases and new news stories every day. I'm sorry, Brittany, you were going to say something, pardon.
now the YouTuber has to pay this rapper like millions of dollars, like millions of
Yes.
dollars.
Yeah, so and again, there's so many cases, and the case that I mentioned, whether you're for the previous president or not, it has
Right,
nothing to do whether you're for him or not. It's the actual case and what law, he didn't exactly abide for and what the courts decided. My opinion, I don't have a personal opinion on whoever is president. I'm just saying what the case is, that it's very well known, probably all around the world by now, and the
right.
huge payout that the, plaintiff had. I'm sorry, you have another question?
Yes. So the fifth question is, what do you propose balancing individual rights with the need for social media regulation?
So this one was hard. This is not an easy question, but I'm going to answer it. First and
Sure.
foremost, people need to be made aware of their rights on social media. Most
Yeah,
people don't. Neither the current government nor the social media companies have made it clear to citizens. I also question in this book what the Third Amendment of the US Constitution implies. So it's okay, Brittany. Many people don't know what the third Constitution implies, but I'll let you know.
sure.
Um, it means privacy in the home. We,
Okay.
as American citizens, are entitled to privacy in our home.
Right.
And there's a lot of inventions and AI and lots of other things, technology and computers and so forth and so on. But how is our Third Amendment right being protected?
That's a great question.
And is our Third Amendment being protected by the use of social media? Because 80% of Americans record in their own homes or record their way of parenting or so many other things that you could imagine that shows up on many of the social media platforms.
Right.
So I think it's definitely a balance between individual rights and the need for social media regulation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was perfectly stated and explained. And now, my next question, what is the message you like to give to the podcast audience, but also to your followers on social media?
I love that question, but we'll get back to that. I think there's a question about why it's so expensive, why my book is so
Okay, you need
expensive.
to ask that. Oh, why is this book so expensive?
All right. So, okay, I'm not the publisher. I have to thank my publisher, which is Aliva Press. Thank you so much for making this dream come true. So this book, I know some people are like, "Ugh, I don't spend more than $20 on the book or whatnot." I'm a different type of author. So I'm an academic book author.
Yes, you
So
are.
this type of book is the type of information that attorneys would get. Many attorneys would pick up this book just to see what laws I talk about.
Right.
Um, this book is really good for anyone who works in social media, just to have on their table, just to see, hey, what can we do? What can I not do? So it's definitely an academic book. So academic books are more expensive. That's
Okay, I
that's
agree. And that's a great reason why they are more expensive.
And the reason they're more expensive because I had to do extensive research. It's not This is not an autobiography or anything like that. I actually had to
Right.
to do research and it has a lot of things. I cover privacy and defamation. I cover what type of regulation we do have, what states, it varies per state, and what states have the regulation. I cover employment. What can happen if you're working and you post something on social media? And I cover regulating terrorist content. And terrorist content is not just foreign. We have a lot of terrorists here in the United States as well, and a lot of groups that are formed. So, and it also talks about our national security with regards to social media. So it's definitely classroom, university, but also for the regular person as well. I don't want this type of information is usually for students and students who have special access to scholarly websites. But I
Right.
wanted to create this book for, hey, that lady who wants to be that influencer, or that person who's promoting their business on social media. I wanted this information to be able to be obtained by any citizen in the United States, not just certain individuals or certain individuals who could pay for a subscription for a scholarly website or just for the academia. I really wanted it, for everyone and for everyone to know what their rights are.
That was a perfectly stated response. I love that response.
And you know what? Let me tell you, if I was one of those people that was a troll, I'm not. And I'd rather pay 42.50. I think that's what the pricing is for this book,
Right.
than have to spend, $3,000 on a retainer fee to find
Yeah.
myself an attorney. First of all, you have to find a social media attorney. Okay.
Right.
It's not, you can't go to a criminal attorney for this. You have to go to a social media attorney. They're new. There's not as many as other type of laws. So there is something called now social media attorney. So they're relatively new. There's not that
Wow.
many that you're going to be able to find right now. So you'd have to retain one of those. And I'm
A cou-
estimating
a
the
couple of
cost.
thousands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
between $3,000 to $5,000.
Wow.
So before you go off on anyone on social media, think about that and the cost of it. And that's just to start.
That was perfect. Yes, absolutely.
And then we can go back to that last question.
And what is the message you like to give to the podcast audience, but also to your followers on social media?
Absolutely. I love this. I usually ask all my guests this, so it's thank you so much for doing this. First of all, thank you for so much
Absolutely.
for being on the show and being the host. I'm never on the hot seat, okay? So I'm still getting used to being on the hot seat, being on this side, and being the
Right.
guest, right? So, what's my message? My message is always learn. It's better to learn than to learn the hard way. Like, I'd rather pick up this book and be like, I cannot go off on anyone on social media. Like, even if I'm invited to the fight, on the comments and so on. And we all know, we've all heard of this, of even family members getting upset and unfriending each other on social media over something somebody said or
Right.
whatnot. So my message to the audience is, the book is phenomenal. Get the book, especially if you spend all day on social media. Always learn. It's easier to have learned and read and obtain the knowledge than learning it the hard way.
Absolutely. That was perfect advice. Absolutely. And everything that you talked about, I'm actually going to take most of that advice as well.
Oh yeah,
Like
Brittany.
I'm becoming smarter on how I communicate on social media. Like there's certain things that I'm like, should I post that or should I respond to that this way? No, I'm not because there's repercussions. And plus, I don't know all the rules, regulations, and policies like you do.
Yeah,
That's
and
why,
it gets a little bit deeper, and I'm going to keep recording this because there's
yeah,
actually algorithms, and I think and I explain this in the book too. They can pull information on everything you've done, and there's like your employer or anyone researching you.
I hear that so many times, right?
Yes, right? We've said that about like if your
Yeah,
employer or your future employer. So what you say on social media resonates and everyone's perception is different.
absolutely.
So that's why I'm like, I thank everyone who listens to my podcast and is going to watch this, so much for listening. And that's basically what my mission here is just to educate people, and educate people worldwide and try to give them tools. And what they use with that tools is up to them. And whether they care to listen to my podcast, great. If not, they can always change the channel.
It's a wonderful, phenomenal podcast. Like everyone needs to listen to your podcast. It's very educational and scholarly. It is.
Yes, and it's wonderful. So, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being sorry, Brittany. Before we leave and before if we stop recording the podcast, you will be getting a free copy of my book, okay? You don't have to pay
Yes, I was
42.50.
waiting for that. I would love that. Yes,
I'm
I was
going to
waiting.
dedicate it to you and everything. Don't worry about it. But
Yay.
everybody else, okay, 42.50. Sometimes there's sales. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, um, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and Ingrid. Okay, you can find my book. Hey, 42.50 versus a couple thousand. It's your choice. I try to make it easy for you.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna
There
stop
you
recording.
go.